We try again. Hey friends, welcome to Daily Sews and Stuff. I'm Brandolyn Daly, and I am going to be showing you how I get a pattern ready to project whenever I maybe need to do some extra stuff digitally first. So, hey Joey, thanks for telling me. So anytime where it's just my face that you're seeing, I can see the live chat, but in a second, whenever I make it my screen, I won't be able to see the live chat. I think we're good, so let's jump in. I am going to switch it to you guys seeing my screen and hop over to my browser. I am going to download a t-shirt pattern and get it ready for my son. So I'm going to choose to download the projector copy, which will mean that I need to do way less work than other ways that I could be doing it. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in my Google Drive. And then I'm going to download the instructions too, just because I haven't done that yet and I'm here. And we're probably going to need those in a second to see what size to do. All right, so that's downloading into my Google Drive. And now if I want to check it on my phone when I'm at the fabric store or whatever else, I can. All right, I'm going to open it in this now. Where did you go? That will be the instructions. So let's open that. And then, oh, come on. I still needed to open the projector file. Come on. And then I need to find the projector file really fast and open that. Where are you? Live. There it is, right there. All right, so we've got the projector file open now too. So we can see both things. Now I'm going to make a shirt for my son, and I wanted to use two different fabrics. So this can be one and this can be another. This is going to be perfect for it. And I am going to need to make sure that it fits him. So what I usually do is I take a highlighter and I go and highlight the sizes that I'm looking at. So his chest is 26 and his waist is 24 and hip is 27, but that's not here, and his height is 52. So what I really could do is just make a size 8. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to grade these two sizes together. So, all right, I am going to go look over here, and I'm going to see that I need size 7 and size 8. I'm going to look at the fact that this does have the layers, so I'll be able to kind of preserve those as I go in through PDF Stitcher. And just kind of notice that these are pretty nice thick lines. I'll probably just go ahead and change it just to make sure it's as thick as I want and to make these lines solid so that when I go into Affinity Designer, everything will be good. All right, but it is only one page. Whoops, it is only one page, so I don't need to stitch any pages together, and I will definitely want some space around it. And I'll do that in Affinity Designer just to show it, but I'll really add the space that I want in, I'll do it in PDF Stitcher just to show it, but I'll really add the space I want in Affinity Designer. So I'm going to go ahead and close this so we don't, sure, go ahead and save it. Of course it's going to take a long time. Yep, and yep, still do it. All right, so that's going to close, and we'll go over here to PDF Stitcher, which I already opened. Once you've opened it the first time, after that it opens super simply. It's just that first time that's tricky, so if you haven't done that yet, go ahead and watch my past videos on PDF Stitcher to know how to do that. All right, so I'm going to open it back up through here. We're going for that. And I'm going to go ahead and change the output for right now. I'm going to tell it that my son's initial is C, and that's how I usually, keep those straight. So I'm going to do C Discoverer Tee. And I'm going to write stitched, so I know that it's been through this PDF Stitcher thing. I'm going to add 20 inches to my margin, and then I'm going to go over to layers, and I am going to, I'm going to go ahead and deselect all just because that seems quicker. We need 7 and 8, and then we need the keep selected, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm not even going to import the grid because what I'll do is when it's in Affinity Designer, I'll give myself a little reference, and that'll be easier than trying to contend with the grid that may or may not jump in the way I want it to. So I'm going to keep the line colors as they are in the pattern. And actually, hold on, I'm going to go back and unselect the keep selected for a second. So I'm going to uncheck line color so that it stays the color that the designer put them at, and I can tell the difference between the two. But I am going to change the line thickness to 5 and the line style to solid. And I'm going to apply to checked. Now I'm going to recheck keep selected. And that way sizes 7, 8, and keep selected will be what shows up in a minute, which should make sure that I have all my words in each of my pattern pieces. All right, so generate this PDF. If you need any of this in more detail, I have other PDF Stitcher videos where I've gone into more detail, and I will certainly answer some questions about that if you have any. In fact, I'll go ahead and do that right now. If you have any PDF Stitcher questions, get them in. I'll go check the chat, and then I'll kind of do that where just every so often I will go back and check things to make sure that we're talking to me right then. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and open Affinity Designer. Now, I pre-opened it because it takes a little bit to start up. And I'm going to do File, Open. Now, you can also go find your file somewhere else, right-click it, and tell it to open in Affinity Designer rather than in Adobe, if you prefer that. But I'm just going to go ahead and do it this way. I'm going to open this that we just saved. And it's going to take a little bit of time. So I'm going to look at this screen before I move on. Load all pages. I only have one, but sure. I have no idea what this DPI estimate means or color space estimate means. I have just left those alone. I do like to check favor editable text over fidelity, which means sometimes it makes the font look a little bit different, but you can edit it as text, and sometimes that's helpful. So I go ahead and leave that checked. And then group lines of text into text frames. Again, that helps me when I go and edit things sometimes. It's not super important, I don't think. And then replace missing fonts. You can tell it yes or no. It usually makes it work. So then I'm going to click OK. It'll take a minute to load. And it's going to tell me that there's some missing fonts and that it's assigned a profile. Now, there is probably a way to do this where it will automatically do this. I don't know how to do that yet. Before we go any further in this, let me just say this. I am so not an expert on this. I've watched a few YouTube videos. I've played around with it a lot. I can get done what I want to get done, but it might not be the most efficient way or anything like that. I'm so still learning with this. So if you want to get into the really nitty-gritty of this, there are people who really know this program and have YouTube videos on it. And you kind of have to watch and then figure out how to apply that to patterning. Which is what I've done with what I've learned so far. But, you know, do what if this is the level that you're at, awesome. I can show you how to do these really super basic things that I know how to do. Okay, so before I jump into any sort of editing, I'm going to go to Document Setup. And I'm going to change my document units to inches because I want to be able to type things in inches and show up in inches. And if I want to measure a length, I want it to show me in inches. And then I'm going to make sure right here that the objects will anchor to page. If it's at rescale, then as it makes the page bigger, it's going to make the objects bigger. And I don't want that. I want my objects to stay the exact size they are, right? Because that's the size they are. That's to get me the correct size. So I want to make sure it's anchored to page, but then I'm going to go ahead and change the dimensions of the page to make it huge and what I need. So I'm going to go ahead and do like, I don't know, 75 inches there. And it's going to, because I didn't uncheck this, it's going to automatically change that to 50 something. I'm going to go with that and see what happens, and I can always come back and change this if I decide later that I want it changed. All right, so right here you can see that it has kept the layers beautifully. Sometimes it doesn't happen quite this prettily. Sometimes it will say something like 8. For instance, where it has this 8 here, it'll say 8, but it'll actually contain stuff from other layers, and sometimes things get funky. But this preserved it beautifully, so yay. Haven't done an Ellie Mac yet, so I didn't really know how that would work. So good for them, yay. So I've got now this t-shirt here, and I am ready to figure out what I want to do. So what I like to do first is to kind of delete the pieces that I won't need, or the parts of pieces that I won't need, because it's silly to try and work around them when I don't need to. So I'm going to hold down Control and roll up the scroll guy on my mouse, and that's going to zoom me in. I can also roll that up and down by itself without holding on to anything to go up and down. And then if I hold the Shift and do that, it's going to take me side to side. So that's how I'm going to kind of navigate as I'm going through here. So I'm going to scroll in. This is a waistband. Now, this is something I probably should have found out first. Is the waistband necessary? No, it's just an option. Okay, cool. I don't want a waistband. So I can go ahead and delete that because I'm not going to do a waistband. So I'm going to kind of start in the white space outside here, and I am going to highlight all of that, but only that. I'm going to hit delete, and it's gone. All right, no more waistband. Not worried about that anymore. The neckband I'm obviously going to need. I know that I'm going to do a short sleeve, but right this second, I can't delete the bottom half of that sleeve. We'll be able to do that in a minute. But I'm going to do a short sleeve, so I certainly won't need a sleeve cuff, so that can go away too. And then we've got the back bodice and the front bodice. Those are obviously necessary. And then the bottom bodice. Lots of things on fold. None of the folds are in the same spot. And there's only one bottom bodice showing when I need 2. So how am I going to work through all that? So this is where we get to play around with the really fun stuff that we can do here in Affinity Designer. So I'm going to go check and make sure that everybody is with me. Okay, awesome. Joey, you can talk to me later about which pattern you're talking about, because I'm not really sure which one you're talking about, so I don't know how to help you. All right, let's go get this done. Okay, so before we can start messing with things, we are going to have to ungroup them. So let's see. Let's decide how we want to grade this. You know what, guys? I will show you another example of grading in a little bit, if you would find that helpful, and you guys can tell me if you do or not. I'm just going to show you right now how to open those folds and everything. I'm going to go ahead and delete layer 7 entirely, and we'll work with layer 8 to show you how I will unfold these and all those sorts of things. If you want a grading one, I'll either do that as a separate video in a little bit, like later this week, or I will show you at the very end. So leave a comment. I'll come back and check those in a little bit about that. Sorry for the change of plans. All right, so let's just look then at this bottom bodice. Let's start with that. We want to unfold this. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure it's ungrouped. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-G, and that will make sure that it is ungrouped. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click, actually, you know what? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that for waistband option, because I'm not doing that, and I would rather not have it there. All right, now I'm going to click this little arrow tool with the arrow at the bottom over here on the side. It's called Node Tool. And then I'm going to click on this guy. At this point, I can really, really manipulate this pattern. In fact, here I go. I'm going to like totally mess it up, and then I'll hit undo. So I can grab this corner and like put it in crazy places and do crazy weird things. And if Control Z, and if I do it over here with this one that has these curves attached, I mean, we can just get crazy with the shape here, right? This is how you, okay, let me redo that delete. There we go. All right. This is how you really get into the nitty-gritty of this pattern. So if I want to duplicate this piece and flip it and double it, if I want to keep the center line, cool. I can just use the regular arrow right here. I can hit Control C, Control V. Then I can come up here. There's probably a shortcut for this, but I don't know it. And click Flip Horizontal. And then I'm going to hold down Shift while I scoot it over. And then I'm going to zoom in, hold down Shift, scoot it over, and get that lined up perfectly. Oops. Scoot over. There you go. And now I've got that unfolded with a center line. And I can delete this cut on fold. There we go. And that's done. Like, totally done. Done with that piece. If I am wanting to make sure that it stays together, I'm going to highlight the whole thing and Control G for group. And then I'm going to copy and paste that whole thing so that I've got a front and a back now. This is not always how I prefer to cut things because I'm lazy, and if I can cut to it once, most of the time that's what I'll do. But I'm going to go ahead and do this one totally open, and we'll go from there. All right, so the neckband, if I'm not grading sizes, that's not going to change at all. So I'm going to highlight that whole thing, group it together, and bring it down here. I can rearrange and put these exactly where I want them in a little while. And in fact, I certainly will. And I'm actually going to go ahead and grab these guys and move them over too, so I've got plenty of room to work. Let's look at the sleeve next. We are really going to use the node tool in the sleeve. So actually, did you see what just happened? When I clicked on it, only the short sleeve line clicked, which means this outside line is a whole different object, a whole different shape in the computer's mind. So in order to make it a short sleeve pattern where it's all one shape together, I'm going to go in here and I am going to break the line and put it back together. All right, so I'm going to click on this the whole sleeve piece, the outside line, and I'm going to put my crosshairs right where the short sleeve cut line is, and I'm going to click, and that's going to give me a new node there. And then with that node still selected, I haven't clicked anything, I'm going to go over here and tell it to break the curve. Then I'm going to go over here to the other side and click right there and tell it to break the curve. And now I should be able to click the bottom half of my sleeve. Here, let me zoom out a little bit. I'm clicking the bottom half of my sleeve, and then I've hit delete, and the bottom half of my sleeve is gone. But this is still a separate line, and I want that to be together. It's one sleeve. I want it all together. So using that node tool, I'm going to click on that outside line. I'm going to hold down the shift key and click on the short sleeve line. And then I'm going to start out here in the white and drag over to grab both those nodes. If you zoom in, you can see there's two right there. And I'm going to tell it to join those curves. Now, you can see that because they weren't lined up exactly, it's got this weird triangle thing. You could just ignore that if you want, or you can delete want to, well, I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to pull that out there. So I'm going to delete that little circle, and that will square that back up. All right. And then we can go over here and highlight those two guys and join the curves. And over here, it just looks a little bit different, but we can just drag that down and that will line that up. And that'll look pretty from where we are. And now we've got a sleeve, but it's cut on fold. Well, we've got one whole piece now that we can move as one. And if we want to copy and paste and do that, we're going to go back to the move tool because these buttons went away when we were in the node tool. So we're back in the move tool. We're going to copy, paste, and we're going to flip horizontal. I'm going to hold down shift and scoot that over. I'm going to zoom in really far so I can really line that up. And now I've got a center line, and if I want to get rid of that center line, I could. Let's get rid of the center line. Get rid of the center line. I'm going to click back. So I'm back on the node tool. I've clicked on one of the sleeves. Up here at the top, I'm going to click that, and I'm going to tell it to break the curve. I'm going to go to the bottom. I'm going to click that one, and I'm going to tell it to break the curve. And now I should be able to click that line and get rid of it. That got rid of it for one side of the sleeve. Let's do the other. We're going to click there, break the curve, click there, break the curve, and then click off, grab that guy, and delete it. So now all I need to do is kind of rearrange the inside stuff. So let's get rid of cut on fold. We want to actually put that inside our pattern. We can put that inside our pattern too. And then we are not doing cuffs, so we can delete that entirely. And since we're doing two sleeves, we can actually first we're going to Control G to group, and then we're going to Control C to copy, and Control V to paste. And now we've got two sleeves. Now, these sleeves are identical, so it doesn't matter. But if you have sleeves that are already open, but you're supposed to cut mirrored, you can just flip horizontally, and you'll have to flip your text back, or not flip it to begin with. But then you've got mirrored sleeves. We can also go in, and I can look at this and say, like, I don't want it to say cut 2 because I made 2, so I'm going to say cut 1. And because we told it to keep it as text, we're able to actually type this as text rather than it being more of like an object, I guess. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move these guys out of our way. And let's look over here at the bodices. I'm going to move them away from each other so that we have space to work. And before I unfold these, I am going to show you something. When I want to keep things cut on folds, but I want all the folds on the same side, you can use the horizontal flip tool to get your pieces the right way around to do that. And then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll make a square, just a randomly sized box, and I'll use that to line up my pieces. And I'll line up the pieces to the box. There we go. And if that's not exact, I would be a little more precise. But if they're lined up to the box, then I can delete the box, and there will be a perfect place for my fold line all the way down. And that way I can just keep things lined up and folded and cut once and go. Because like I said, I'm kind of lazy and I prefer to cut on the fold a lot of times just because it's half the work of cutting. Okay, so let's go back in here though and finish unfolding these guys. So for this, I've selected it, I'm going to copy it and paste it. I'm going to flip it horizontally, hold down Shift and move it over. And line it. Why are you not working? There we go. Line it up. Now, I need to just adjust this just a tiny bit, right? So I'm going to use the arrow key on my keyboard. And it brings up those blue lines, which will show me when I've lined it up. Because if I keep going too far, they start getting big again, right? All right. Right there, with it super skinny, I've got it perfectly lined up on top of each other. And I can get rid of this cut on fold. And I can group that. And I've got that done. It's kind of more of a V-shaped than I thought that shirt was, but whatever. All right, we're gonna copy, paste, flip, Shift, scoot, get it kind of close, zoom in, and get it perfectly lined up, zoom out, group, and actually I should have done that first. Let me ungroup that. Hold on. Control Z. Control Z. Let's erase that first. All right, now let's group it. So now I've got all my pieces laid out flat, just how I want to cut them. Now I want to lay them out just how I want to cut them. So I'm actually going to cut this out of 2 different fabrics, and I prefer for my pattern pieces to go like this, to be shifted counterclockwise once. And you know, in Adobe, you have to shift 3 times to get it once counterclockwise because you can only go clockwise. So it's just easier to do it here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to shift that once counterclockwise, and I'm going to remember to leave myself a really nice margin, and I'm going to put that about right here. And then I'm going to grab this next guy, and these are both going to be in one type of fabric, and I'm going to get them kind of close. I'm going to give myself room to cut between them, but not where I'm wasting a lot of fabric. And I'm going to grab both my sleeves and bring them over 2, and then I'll do it one at a time to kind of line them up a little bit better. That's going to fit in there nicely. And then I think I'll go ahead and do the neck. I don't know, I'm torn about the neckband. I'm going to put it in the middle because I'm torn about it. I might decide to do it out of the solid fabric that the bottom of the shirt's going to be out of. And I'll put that right there. Now, I have 2 choices here. I can accept the fact that I'm pretty much going to have to shift my fabric anyways to fit another shirt bottom in here. And say that, well, I'll just shift the fabric and cut again from this same one. Or I can say I'll just double when I get to that, especially if that's the only thing I'm cutting out of the solid fabric. Or I could make my document bigger and add this guy. I'm going to leave it like this. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this guy. Now, I deleted the grid earlier, so I still need to make sure that I've got a something to check against whenever I start projecting my pattern. So I'm going to go over here to this layers thing, and I'm going to kind of, okay, so whenever I grouped things, it kind of shifted them all into the same layer. So I'm actually going to delete this layer 8, which has nothing in it right now. And then everything right now is in the keep selected layer. So I'm going to go ahead and just rename that layer pattern. All I did was click on it. And then I'm going to add a layer right here. This little page icon. And it's going to call it layer 1. I'm going to call it grid. It's not really going to be a grid, but that's fine. So with grid highlighted over here, so that's the layer that I'm working in. I'm going to go grab my rectangle tool. And right down here, I'm just going to make a box, any random old size. And then I'm going to go over in this corner over here, and I'm going to tell it that I want the width of this box to be 24 and the height of this box to be 16. And I'm going to click on this move tool so I can put it anywhere I want to, and I'm going to sort of put it kind of here in the middle. And it's this gray color, which is not super easy to see on my mat, so I'm going to make it like this bright, obnoxious green color. I say that's my son's favorite color. That was kind of mean, but it's bold and bright. That was my point. So if you look, that's actually its own layer, and then the pattern is its own layer. So when I go to project in a minute, I'll be able to turn this 16 by 24 box on or off. That way I can check my calibration really fast before I jump into things. And if I want to, I always do 16 by 24, so I don't usually mark it, but I can go over here and add with this text tool. I can give myself a text box and type 16x24. And now you're going, that's really tiny. It is, it's fine. So I'm holding down Control and Shift and using the arrow key to highlight all of that. And I'm going to go up right here to where it says 12 point. And I'm going to go down to like 288. That's ginormous. And that is definitely something I'm going to see. All right. So that's all part of my grid layer. It all goes away together, comes back together. I'm going to hit Control S. And that's going to take me to save. And so right now it's going to save it as an Affinity file. This will be a file that is editable, that I can come back and open in Affinity and use again, and that's perfect. I'm going to go ahead and save it that way. But I now need a copy that I can go work with in Adobe. So I'm going to go File, and then I'm going to go Export. It's already selected at PDF. It's a PDF digital. I have no idea what any of these things mean. I am going to turn off that preview because I'm afraid it'll open up in Infinity, and I don't want it to open in Infinity. But I do want it to do the whole document. And I want to make sure when I go to do this that both of my layers are showing, because it will only export the layers that are showing. All right, so we're going to export, and we're going to call this done. I'm going to save it, and if you noticed down there it said it was saving it as a PDF. I kind of closed it too fast for that, sorry. And then I can go right over here, and I can find it over here. Uh-oh. Oh, there it is at the top. And I'll double click that, and it should open in Adobe. It might try to open in Affinity, but it says Adobe right there. Yeah, it's trying to open it in Affinity. Okay. I'm going to right click it and tell it to open with Adobe. All right, and there we go. We've got our pattern right there. Got plenty of room to maneuver. We've got that grid that we can turn off, the pattern that for some reason we could turn off if we wanted to, and that would be totally ready for me to take over to my projector and start cutting out. I will show you guys a little bit of grading because it's not terribly late yet, but let me go see if anybody had any questions. All right, good, we good? All right, awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and transition back, and let's go look at some grading. So I'm gonna click this X right here to close that document, and it's gonna wanna make sure that it's saved. Even if you save it right before you export it, after exporting it always asks me, and I always tell it yes because I would not want to lose anything by accident. So we've got that gone. I'm gonna, what am I gonna open up to? Actually, let's do it this way. Okay. I'm gonna open up the Made for Mermaids page, which is one that I did for my daughter. And as you can see here, I lined everything up on the fold, but I did not, I went ahead and cut it on the fold. And I just made the binding really giant so that I could see it when I was cutting instead of making myself a piece. But you can see here that I did some grading, and you know, this is not going to work without the old piece. Let's open the old piece. All right, we'll open up the copy shop version. This is an old pattern. It is free from Made for Mermaids. It is layered, and rather than run it through PDF Stitcher like I normally would and delete all these layers, I'm just going to hide them. But you should totally run it through PDF Stitcher for ease next time. What did I leave checked that I didn't mean to? That. Okay. So this is what I did for my daughter before. So she's this tiny little thing, but she was up at her chest. She was more towards the size 4, but down by her waist and her hips, she was more of the size 2, and her height was definitely the size 4. And this is a pattern that's got a lot of options and a lot of stuff going on. So in order to work with this, now I didn't run it through PDF Stitcher, so those are, oh, actually it's fine. Okay, cool. I wasn't sure if it was going to treat those dashes as individual lines or not, but it didn't. So in order to do this for her, I went ahead and I got rid of these top cut lines because that's not what I was doing in the straight tunics. And even these dress cut lines, because I was doing a curved tunic. And I'm just going to work with one of these pieces and show you, unless you guys really just want to see all the things. And so what I decided to do was, since down here at the bottom, she needed this width, I went ahead and grabbed this line, and I used the shift key to keep it straight, and I moved it down to where the purple line was, and then I deleted the purple line. She didn't need the purple line. She needed the height of that purple line, but not the width of it. And so since the pink one was already the right width, it was easier just to scoot it down than to redraw the purple one narrower, if that makes any sense. And then I needed to have the neck opening and the arm opening and a little bit of the chest width for the size 4, but I needed to narrow down to size 2 by the time we got to the bottom. So what I did then was I went ahead and deleted the pink, which this, when I made it a solid line through PDF Stitcher, deleted much easier. I don't want that. I want... yep, that was the wrong button. Okay, I'm just going to leave that pink one there. So now here, I've got this spot where I want that to meet, right? So I just grabbed this line, and oh, that's not it. Zoom in so I can actually work with you. And I kind of tilted it in like this until those lines met. And then I didn't want it to curve out. I wanted that line to go too. So I just sort of... No, that's not at all what I did. What did I do? Now that I'm showing you guys, I have no idea what I did. Oh, I did it with a node tool, of course. Okay, we're going to try that again. We're going to use the node tool rather than the move tool, and it's going to work much better. We're going to grab this, and we're going to scoot it over until it's touching right there where we want it to. And then I can, again, in the node tool, I can just scoot this guy up until he's touching there. And I can do the same thing over, actually, some of those will delete. And I can just scoot that up and I can get rid of all of that extra stuff there. So now this shirt is a 4 at the top down to a 2 width at the bottom out of 4 length. And I could do the same thing to the front of the shirt. I did the same thing to the sleeves. When I, wrong way. When I did it, I did the same thing to the sleeves. I just slimmed them down but kept the length. And if I remember right, I did leave the sleeves on the fold, but I put 2 of them. I could have put the sleeves on the flat, and then since I was folded, my fabric was folded, I would have cut out 2 at once. And, you know, like this piece is all kind of wonky and I didn't use it, but if I had wanted to, I could have turned it so that everything was all lined up, like you saw that just a second ago. I had everything all lined up perfectly so I could just hit the fold and go for it. Alright, so that was kind of quick and dirty. This was, ooh, that's not the right button. Okay, that was kind of quick and dirty, but that was how I use Affinity usually. Yeah, so any more questions about Affinity and how to use it, how to use that node tool? Really, once you get comfortable with that node tool, you can do pretty much anything you want to do. And it uses a lot of the same keyboard shortcuts that most Windows programs use. You know, the Control-C for copy, Control-V for paste, Control-Z for undo. That's a really good one to know. I use that one a lot. So you just kind of get comfortable with it and keep playing with it. And you can always, you know, use PDF Stitcher to make your lines solid first, but also it makes you a copy. So you can make that copy with PDF Stitcher and go play with it. And if you completely mess it up, delete the whole thing and run it through PDF Stitcher again and start over. You haven't lost the original pattern that way. So that's my recommendation for that. I would love to hear any questions you guys have and to go into more detail with this. Yeah, okay, so Grace asked, what's the benefit of Affinity versus Inkscape? I started with Inkscape, and even following the tutorials that people had out, it seemed really clunky to me. I had a lot of trouble getting it to work well on my computer, which could totally be the fault of my computer. But it never seemed to work quite right. And none of the shortcuts that I, typically used seemed to work quite the same. And over here on Affinity Designer, if you go, here, if I click something and when I hover over something, it tells me, flip horizontal. It tells me move to front. And when I was, I don't guess you guys can see that because I didn't show you. Here, let's try that again. Over here on Affinity Designer, if you hover over a tool, it'll tell you what that tool does. It also over here has the layers and it preserves the layers. And that's really awesome because Inkscape won't preserve the layers. It will bring it all in onto one layer, which is fine. You can totally work within that. Inkscape is free. So the fact that it's clunky and a little harder to use and doesn't keep your layers is totally worth the trade-off of free for a lot of people. For me, I found Affinity Designer when it was on sale. I got a 90-day free trial, and then it was only $25. And I also got it for $10 on my iPad because eventually I want to set up some of my projectors for mobile projecting. Not because I really want to do that, but because I want to be able to show how to do that. And a lot of people prefer using Affinity Designer on the iPad because you can enter a zoom percentage versus just finger zooming in Zoto. So that was kind of how I started in it, but then it works really, really well. And for me, it was worth the $25. I've used it for a lot of things, and I think I've more than gotten my money's worth already. But yeah, I mean, if you are happy using Inkscape and it is not crashing all the time, then totally use that. There is no, I'm not here to try to convince you that you have to spend the money on Affinity Designer if you're happy using Inkscape. Joey says that yours doesn't look like mine. I don't know. I didn't change anything in the preferences that I can remember. I've used it to mess with files to cut with my Cricut. You can save it as a SVG when you're done. I've used it to make a layout of my house whenever we moved in here so that I could figure out the position of the furniture before we moved in because I kind of nerd out on stuff like that. And then I use it for my patterns all the time. And it's always looked like that as far as I remember. I don't know how to make it look like that. If you're talking about the dark mode, I might have turned dark mode on because sometimes just all the white on the screen is just a lot. But if it's not laid out the same as mine, I don't know how to fix that. I do know here, let me transition back over there. On the left-hand side, you can, if you flip through these different options, it will change how I said left, this is right, how that looks. And you can, I can pull that out there, and then it goes away. And now I have no idea how to fix that. Can I undo that? Nope. I'll know how to fix that now. But, okay, I will be there in a minute. Lovely. All right. Obviously, I need to wrap this up, but I will have to figure out how to make it look like that because I just messed it up and I don't know how to undo that. So I will for sure do that. Awesome, Grace. Yeah, it really is so much more user-friendly in my opinion. And I found that watching Affinity Designer videos on YouTube, seriously, there would be 40-minute videos and I would watch the first 10 minutes of it and be like, okay, I've got enough for today. I learned how to use the node tool. Let me go do that. And then another time I would go and watch another 10 minutes and be like, okay, I learned how to do the next thing. So I found that really helpful. Awesome, Annie. I have a lot of other videos that really go into a lot of the nitty gritty of projector sewing, and I'm excited about getting even more into this world. So, all right. Awesome, Joey. I'm glad you've got it to work. All right, if there's not any more questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because it's almost 9 o'clock, which means it's almost time for that 7-year-old to go to bed who apparently needs help writing something about skate park. I gave him screen time so I could do this, so I need to go figure out what's going on. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me, and this will go back up so you can watch it later, Grace. It'll take a while to upload and everything, but it will definitely go back up on my YouTube channel, and hopefully it will be helpful to you then. If you are watching this later and you have some more specific questions, leave them in the comments, and I will do my best to make sure that the live chat comments show up throughout the video, and you guys can leave questions and I will come answer them and maybe do another video. These lives are kind of fun, especially when there's people interacting, and then I don't have to edit it, which means that you see all the mess ups and all the things that take extra long, but it also is easier for me in a lot of ways. So I think we may just plan to do this again in a few weeks and go over more stuff that might come up. Karen asked if Node can be used to lengthen or shorten. Absolutely. That is the one that you'll want to use. If you try to do it with that move tool, it's going to skew everything. But if you do it in the node tool, you can lengthen just the lines you want to. Very similar to how I did that last pattern where I was grading it. And in fact, I shorten patterns for myself all the time. So back of my mind, we'll do this again in a couple of weeks, maybe in a month. And I will work on that. All right. I'll try to plan these for a little bit in my house. It's kind of important to make sure that I don't get interrupted. All right, guys, I had fun. I will see you guys later. Bye.